Welcome to BC Mnemonics. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Navicula, a type of portable altitude dial very similar in function to the Regiomontanus dial. Now the first thing you may notice is its overall form, its resemblance to a little ship as per the name of Navicula, Latin. Now what's worth noting is that each of the elements that makes up the overall image of the ship is not only artistic but very practical. For example, the mast here not only serves as the image of the mast, but also contains the latitude scale and the date scale down at the bottom, as well as these crenellated bits for keeping the plumb bobs nice and secure. Bow and stern also have these, as you can tell. Also on the bow and stern are the sighting vanes for use with solar alignment. Now, before we get into the practical step-by-step use of this dial, let's take a look at some of its key features. So as I just said, we have the latitude scale up on the mast here. Depending on your latitude of use, it will slide this collar up or down, as we'll get to in a moment. In the hull of the ship here, we have the hour scale with morning hours listed on the top row, afternoon hours on the bottom. These are Gothic numerals, which might be a little bit unusual to viewers, but their function is fairly straightforward once you understand what the symbols mean. On the reverse of the dial, we have two more instruments as well as a reference table. So while this dial doesn't have this particular feature, some Naviculas will have a gazetteer listed on the back of the mast with latitudes, with cities and their latitudes. Over here, we have a split declination table that if you don't happen to know the current zodiac degree as needed to set the date here, you can reference this table. So it'll tell you your current month and or any month and the date that the sun enters that sign within the month. So for example, we have March here. So March 21st is when the sun enters Aries. Depending on your positions of the year, you may reference one or the other, but it's just a simple, helpful tool to determine where the sun is in the zodiac. Now down below here, we have a couple more interesting tools. So we have a shadow square for use with surveying. With this, you can identify the height of an object or the distance to an object, depending on the circumstance. And over here, we have a quadrans vetus, or a seasonal hour altitude quadrant. Now, I've done a few different demonstrations that deal with seasonal hours. If you're watching this on bcmnemonics.com, I'd suggest you navigate to the dedicated quadrans vetus video. But if you haven't seen that, here is a quick overview. So depending on the time of year, the sun's culminating degree will vary quite considerably. So depending on when you're using this dial, you'll set the plumb bob to the highest degree of the sun for that day. So let's just pretend that the sun culminates at 70 degrees. Today I would set the plumb bob right here. At this moment, as you can see, it's already set. I would put the bead to the end of the 6th hour. And again, seasonal hours. 6 corresponds with the culmination of the sun, or noon, the end of the 6th hour, that is. 1st hour is sunrise, 12th hour is sunset. So with this in place, I'm all ready to sight the sun. So as I said before, I would use these front and back sighting vanes to do that. Taking this out in the sun, I would position it so that a beam of sunlight streams through the first and onto the second. So I would make sure that these sighting holes from the first are projected directly on top of the sighting holes of the rear sight. So that would entail me pointing this dial at the azimuth of the sun and raising it until I see the projection take place. And at that moment, the plumb bob and bead will have a certain position along this scale that I would then mark and take down and read. So here I could tell that it's the 3rd hour, 3rd seasonal hour, if I was using this in the morning, for example. Now I'll just wrap this back up before moving to the front of the dial, which will give us the equal hour as opposed to the seasonal hour. So this part of the dial is very similar to the Regiomontanus. And To use it, the first step is to set the date. So this current day, we're quite close to the summer solstice. We're about 11 degrees into Gemini. So I will adjust the mast so that the lower portion of it points to right almost the middle of Gemini. So right about there. I think that will do. Now with this mast set, next step is to adjust the latitude. So this is date, time for latitude, just like the Regiomontana style, except rather than adjusting both with the articulated arm, we're adjusting the date with the tilt of the mast and latitude with the sliding latitude collar. So again, same selection mode, well, same selection and concept, just a different way of doing it. And so for here, as you can see, this dial is fairly universal. We can select latitudes anywhere from 20 degrees all the way up to 65 degrees north. And for my latitude, I'll be selecting 44 degrees. So 40 being here, 44 just under 45. And I have to make sure that it's the little string holder here for the plumb bob that is actually set to my latitude. So 44, I will secure that in place. Oh, sorry, that's actually right here. There we go. And again, Gothic numerals, but that is 40. So now, only one more step before the dial is ready to be used. And that is to set the date a second time, except this time for the bead. So this step will look very familiar if you've seen the Regiomontanus video, but I simply dangle the plumb bob down to the earth, or in this case, manipulating it with my hand, and position it over the current date on this secondary date scale. And although this one isn't marked, you can sort of superimpose this lower one, rotate it up, and imagine what the values would be on this version. So Gemini is the farthest right zodiac date on this scale, so I can picture it being right here. So laying the plumb line over that date, that's the farthest left edge of the date scale. I position the bead on the on 12 p.m. So now that this dial is ready to be used, and even before I take a reading, I'm able to see the moment of sunrise and sunset, just like other similar altitude dials of this type. So, for example, sunrise, I can see will take place at 4:30 a.m. on the AM scale, and on the PM scale, 7:30 p.m. is the time of sunset. So let's pretend I were taking a reading with this dial during the day. Exact same procedure for the unequal hour quadrant. I would use these very same sights and tilt the dial until I see a beam of sunlight stream through both. So again, see these holes projected right on top of the holes of the lower sight. And it's worth mentioning, because of my latitude 44 degrees, this latitude collar does get in the way just a little bit. As you can see, aligning these with the sun does result in the sun just barely making it around that collar. It does work, but it makes the setting procedure just a little bit difficult. That's simply a matter of design. And even then, it does work just fine. It's just, they're slightly obscured. But anyway, holding this up, using the sun to align the dial. Let's just pretend I took a reading right here. I would take the bead down, take a reading, and if this was in the morning, I would be able to tell that this was taken at 7 a.m., or if I were taking the reading in the afternoon, 5 p.m. Now, I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and thank you for watching.